so that from day 2 we start practicals and till day last, at least there will be 40 sessions, at least 40. From day 2 to the last day, we will be having practicals. A lot of practicals, all of the things that you see in the curriculum, the first 3 to 4 modules are theory, rest are practical. I will be covering theory on day 1. From day 2, we will start practicals, and at least for 40 sessions, we will be having practicals. From day 2 to the day last, we will be having pure practicals. Major focus on practical for each of the vulnerability that you see, for each of the issue that you see. I will be covering a few points. The first thing that I will be covering about each vulnerability or each security issue is that first of all, I will be covering the definition. I will be covering two definitions. First one would be the non-technical definition, and another one would be the technical definition. Non-technical definition will be including the real life example. The first thing that I would want you to do is to get hooked. When I'm discussing on any of the topic for you, I will be requiring your attention. So for me to be able to keep your attention for more than 50 minutes, for more than 60 minutes, I would want you to relate to what I'm discussing about, to what we are discussing about. The first thing that I do whenever we will be starting any of the topic, I will be giving a real life example. So you will be able to relate. And here I am assuming that you are a 5 year young kid. You are a 5 year young kid and you just know English. Apart from that, you do not know anything else. From that perspective, I will be giving you examples so that you understand it clearly. And when you have to explain, you have to explain it to your interviewer, you have to explain it to your team members, you have to explain it to your client, to anyone. You are in the position that for all levels of people, you are in the position to explain. So the first thing about each vulnerability will be the non-technical, the real life example based definition. Second thing that I will be discussing is the technical definition according to reputed sources like OWASP, Sense, to reputed sources. Now, why is this important? Because from the perspective of interviews, because if you are learning something, either you will be giving interviews or you will be taking interviews. Either you are on that side of the table or you are on this side of the table. In both of the scenarios, you will be requiring that if this is the interview question, what is the ideal answer for it? So from that perspective, we will be having the technical definitions as well, that if someone asks this in you in an interview, or you have to ask this in an interview, what is the answer that is expected? Not only from the perspective of interview, when you have to discuss things technically, like you have been called as a speaker at any of the conferences like DEFCON, Black Hat, besides Nullcon, Seasides, any of the conference, you have been called as a speaker and you are discussing this with the panel, or someone from the audience has asked you something. So how do you speak that people would want to listen to you? So from that perspective, from the technical definition, we will be having it, considering that you are not going to any of the uh, conferences, you are just discussing this internally with your team members, or you are discussing with the technical team of your client. You need to talk in the terms that they understand. You and them need to be on the same page, internal team or client. So for that reason, we will also be discussing the technical definition, that this is what we are talking about. Then we will be discussing why. If you talk of any of the security issue, that why this security issue is there, you must have came across quite a common term in cybersecurity, in application security, is root cause analysis. It means that why is this security issue happening? Why? What is the root cause of this security issue to happen? That is what we will be discussing. Third, how to test. We will be assuming here that you are a person, you are a black hat, black box tester who have been hired by the competitor of the organization, of the application that you are testing, and your task is by any of the way you have to find a lot of severe security issues in that. This is the approach, this is the mindset that we will be having, that as a black hat, black box tester who has no idea about the application, if I ask you that your website is xyz.com and you have to find this vulnerability in it. So what will be your initial steps? How will you be analyzing the web application behavior? How will you be analyzing the attack surface? All of those things from the technical perspective, we will be discussing for each and every vulnerability. We will be discussing all of the steps to test, right from step one, that is opening the website, to reporting, that this is what you do. You go here, you click next, you intercept, repeater, request, response, send this, send that, send this, and then this is the final response that you are looking for, and then how you effectively report it. We will not only be covering the pen testing approach, we will also be covering the bug hunting approach. Both of the approaches we will be having hand in hand. Second thing that we will be discussing, or the next thing that we will be discussing, is the impact. Whether you are a pen tester or you are, this one, bug hunter, in both of the situations, it is very important for you that you tell the impact clearly and effectively, so that your reputation increases both as a pen tester and as a bug hunter. And second, you are able to get that vulnerability mitigated, fixed as early as possible. So for that reason, it is quite important that you understand the impact, what are the various attack patterns that we have, and on the basis of that, you move ahead. Simple. Then the last thing that we will be doing is the mitigation, that if in your client's application this vulnerability has been found, how will you be mitigating it? What are the recommendations that you will be giving it to them? Simple. So for each and every vulnerability that you find in the training curriculum, you will be able to answer all of these things. You will be able to see all of these things. I'll also be sending the link to our curriculum in the chat box here. Hmm? So regarding each and every vulnerability, this is what we will be discussing. Along with this, we will also be understanding that, especially as a pen tester, because a lot of you have mentioned that you are working professionals and you would want to upgrade your skills and then boost your career. So for you to be able to boost your career while upgrading your skills, how the things work in the corporate, in the industry, in the market, understanding that is also very important. So we will also be understanding what are all of the step-by-step processes along with the documentation that you will be requiring from the client. Either it is a one-time engagement or is it an AMC. All of the must-have and good to have things, like if there is any of the change in the scope, if there is any of the other thing you require, how does those things happen, both from the internal team member perspective and also from the perspective of a third party vendor. From both of the perspectives, we will be looking at things. Next, as some of you mentioned that you are from GRC background and you would want to have more things related to auditing, in that situation, we will also be discussing the things that if you are planning for any of the compliance, if you are performing auditing, like if you belong to a specific industry, like you belong to healthcare, you need to be compliant with HIPAA. If you are managing processing payment card data, you need to be compliant with PCI GDPR. Also, if in case you would want to operate at a specific location, like in India, you need to be, following the DPDP, that is Digital Personal Data Protection Act. In Europe, you have GDPR. So if in case you are performing the pen testing according to these compliances, if you are performing auditings and your plan is for these compliances, how do you perform the testing keeping these things in mind? So all of these things we will be covering. We will be covering OWASP top 10 for sure. We will be covering SENS top 25, that is two for sure. Plus, along with this, we will be covering more vulnerabilities that are not a part of OWASP top 10, that are not a part of Sense top 25, but they are required by the industry. They are required by the market. When you go for the interviews, questions will be asked from that. When you're working in the company, those vulnerabilities will be found in your client's application. So we will be covering OWASP top 10, plus we will be covering Sense top 25, plus we will be covering those vulnerabilities that are required by the market but are not covered neither in OWASP top 10 nor in Sense top 25. I'll quickly take you through the training curriculum and I'll give you a brief of what we will be covering in each of the modules. The first three modules that you can see, these are related to the overall process. As I mentioned, that I will be helping you in understanding about each of the domains, about each of the approaches, web application, pen testing, and bug hunting. As an organization, how can you choose what to do in which of the approach? We will be covering it. The first three modules are pure theory. They will be completed on day one. For each of the topic, you will be having documentation for your future reference. So I will be sharing them with you for all of the topics, for all of the modules in the training curriculum. You will be getting detailed documentations for your future reference. So first three modules, pure theory. What are the various phases? How do you perform the scoping? How do you perform the mapping, discovery, exploitation, reporting, retesting, all of them, how to do, when to do, all of them we will be discussing. Then the next three modules that you see, that is module 4, module 5, module 6, these are related to the reconnaissance, that is information gathering. What is reconnaissance? Why do you do it? How do you do it? How do you perform subdomain enumeration? Manual approach, automated approach. What are the various tools that you can use? What if those tools are not working? If any of the tool stops working, like Aquatone is not working, or Subsleuth is not working, Sudomi is not working. If those tools are not working, how can you create your own scripts? I myself have created a lot of tools. You can find them on my GitHub repository. I'll take you to it in a moment. And if in case those tools are not working, what can you do? We will be first learning the manual approach, that this is how we will be doing. Then we will be moving towards the automated approach, understanding both of them, getting the best out of both of them. Then the next module, module 7, is related to content discovery, asset discovery. That how do you do it? How do you find out various files and folders? What are the various approaches that you can use for finding the content, using web archive, using spidering, using automated crawlers, all of them. How do you enlarge your attack surface by discovering all of the insertion points, endpoints, parameters, the automated manual approach? All of them we will be discussing. Next point, pen testing, AWS storage. Though technically it is not something that web application pen testers will be doing, but as I mentioned that we will be discussing both of the approaches, pen testing as well as bug hunting. Especially as a bug hunter, if you come across any of the S3 bucket in the application, we will be learning how can you test for them, whether they are misconfigured, testing for multiple permissions, like how, can you read any of the S3 bucket, can you upload something to the S3 bucket, can you delete something from the S3 bucket, what are the various things you can do, and how can you maximize the impact? That is what we will be discussing. Then the next part, module 9, module 10, these are related to GitHub. GitHub is popularly being used by the organizations, by the developers for performing version control, for managing their source code. It is very important as an organization to enhance the security of how our assets, how our source code is being managed. So we will also be looking at what are the various ways wherein as a bug hunter slash a pen tester, you can enhance, you can check, you can test the security of GitHub repositories that belong to your scope. So here we will be discussing them. Then from module 11, we will be having broken authentication and session management, wherein all of the security issues, various attack patterns related to authentication and session management, they will be discussed. Single factor authentication, how can you bypass them? Two factor authentication, how can you bypass them? Not only using brute force, but various other attack patterns as well. What could be the various logical security issues business logic flaws that can help you in bypassing single two-factor authentication. That is also what we will be discussing. All of the demonstrations, or at least 90% of the demonstrations, will be done on live websites. Not only for this module, for the complete curriculum, at this moment when I speak, we have 100% live websites for all of the topics that you see in the curriculum. Why am I committing 90%? Because there is a possibility that today we have got 100% live websites. But by the time I reach that module in your batch, those websites might get patched, because along with me, other trainers will also be explaining them, demonstrating them in the batch, and some of the other participant might report it to the organization and it might get patched. So for that reason, I am committing at least 90% of the things will be demonstrated on the live websites, and the rest 10% will be taken care of on the labs, but they will be free so you can practice. Again, at this moment as I speak, for all of the modules, for all of the topics, we have multiple live websites, so the probability is less that I will be requiring any of the lab, but still at least 90% in the worst case scenario will be demonstrated on live websites, so that you get an idea that in real life, when you are working on any of the project or any of the modern day web application, how things will be looking at, how the vulnerable web application will be looking at. Then module 13 is related to password recovery functionality. What are the various test cases related to it? We will be discussing it. Then module 14, 15, 16, these are related to authorization. These are related to privileges. These are related to access control. You will see a lot of security issues that you have commonly heard of: IDOR, various types of IDOR. Most of the people believe that IDOR means accessing any other user's data, but it is a lot more deeper than that. You can even have a full account takeover using IDOR. So we will be discussing various attacks, various attack patterns related to vulnerabilities. Then we will be having injections, one of the most sought after, one of the most popular vulnerabilities that will always be in demand in application security, not only in web, in other application domains as well, like APIs, Android. We will be discussing some of the most common, popular, and easily foundable, vulnerabilities: text injection, CSV injection, cookie injection, and what all things you can do with them. Like with cookie injection, what are the various attack patterns, sensitive actions, non-sensitive actions, host header injections, HTML injection, XSS, SQL, all of these we will be discussing. Then arbitrary code injection, remote code execution, a P1, as you know it, remote code execution, server-side template injection. We will be discussing them as well in detail, practical, on live applications. Then vulnerabilities of modern web applications. These are some of the vulnerabilities that are commonly found on web applications, medium to high level on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most severe security issue can be. These will be lying somewhere between 7 to 9. So here CSRF, SSRF, LFI, RFI, CORS, we will be discussing them as well. Then from module 21, what you have thereafter, 21, 22 to 23, as a bug hunter, these may not be of that much of importance to you, because in most of the cases, testing for DOS, DDoS, or no rate limiting is out of scope as a bug hunter. But as a pen tester, these are quite important, especially as an internal team member for the cybersecurity. These vulnerabilities will be playing a crucial role in the confidentiality and the availability of your application. So module 21, 22, 23, again, some more of the security issues, some more of the common security issues that you will be finding in the web applications that you are associated with. So here, this was an overall of what we have in our curriculum. If you have any questions or queries, we can take them. I'll quickly have a look at the chat box. If you do not have any questions, we can move on to the next phase of our today's discussion, wherein we will be having a practical demo. I'll be taking a vulnerability. I'll explain it so that you get an idea of what is the methodology that will be employed for the discussion. Let me quickly have a look at the chat box. One of the participants have asked that for WAPT, we need a soft knowledge of code. So I am assuming here that you mentioned that soft knowledge of code here means that do we require little bit of knowledge related to coding. Hmm? So if this is the situation, if I have understood it correctly, yes, you will be requiring basic knowledge of coding. You need not write the code, and all you need to do is you just need to understand the code, read the code of what is happening in the code, especially in the initial phase of you being a WAPT guy. But at the later phase where you would have to automate the things, you will have to write your own exploits like on your everyday job, or if you're planning for any of the certifications like EWPTX by INE, OSCP, OSWE by Offensive Security. If you're planning to take on these certifications, knowledge of coding, especially these scripting languages, will be coming in handy. So to conclude the answer, at the moment in the initial phase, writing the code is not required. How to read and understand the code, I will help you with it. But at a later point of time, after 2 to 3 years or even before than that, you will need to learn how to write the code. So yeah, not any of the high level complex code, just basic scripting with Go language or Python or Bash, even that would do. One of the participants have mentioned any prerequisites to learn. Yes, a couple of prerequisites that I will be requiring from you. First, I'll be requiring that you are disciplined, you be regular to the trainings. And second, I will be requiring that you have a laptop with a comfortable configuration, like you have 8 plus GB of RAM, DDR4 would do. You will be requiring at least Windows 10. If not that, you will be requiring Linux, and with that, you will be requiring 200 GB of free storage, and that would be enough. We will not be using any of the commercial tools. All of the tools that we will be using, they will be free or they will be open source. Again, free. So the only heavy tool that we will be using is Burp Suite. That too will be the community edition. We do not require Burp Suite Pro. We will be requiring Burp Suite Community Edition that is free to use. So that is all. The next part, do you provide live recordings? For that, you can connect with the management team. I have mentioned their number here. They will help you whether recordings are provided or not. Any help regarding the interview questions? Yes. When you will be joining the discussions for each and every topic, I mentioned that these will be interactive discussions. This will be an interactive session. So all of the questions that I will be asking you will actually be the interview questions. So I can share those with you. Plus, you interact with me. So it's a win-win for both of us. Yes, help regarding interview questions for each and every topic for overall web security will be done. Interactions will be done in the form of interview questions. I am planning to join bug bounty, API, and Android testing. How should I plan this training? You can get in touch with the management team on the number that I have highlighted on your screen. They will help you on the roadmap. They will help you on how can you join them, and when the batches are starting, they will help you with all the details. Sayyed has asked, do you have any mind map for bug hunting process? Well, technically, the essence or the good part related to bug hunting is that it is not constrained or it is not, fixed by a specific process. If it was fixed as a process, it would be bug hunt. It would not be bug hunting. It would simply be pen testing because you're following something. The good part about bug hunting is everyone has their own approach. But if in case you want that, Rohan, I feel stuck, I do not know what to do next, for you to help you with those situations, you head over to my GitHub repository. This is my GitHub repository, Hacktivist Arrow, bug bounty word list. This is my profile. This is the repository. And here I have put up a TXT file on how to start bug hunting. If on any of the application you do not feel that what is the next step, you do not know what is the next step, Simply take this and follow this line by line. Though this is something that I follow, it is optional that you follow this approach. I will be sharing this with you. I will be sharing this link with you. Plus, I will also be sharing this link with you. So this is my GitHub repository. Here you will be able to find the resources. Here. Now, moving to the next phase of our today's discussion, I mentioned that we will be having a practical demonstration. So for that, I have decided that in today's discussion, we will be discussing about cross-origin resource sharing, quite popular, quite interesting issue that you should be knowing about. For you to be able to understand it, I have broken this down into three terms: cross-origin, resource, and sharing. Before I go ahead and discuss about cross-origin, can any one of you tell me what is same origin policy? What is same origin policy? Anyone? One of the participants have mentioned rules set by the browser. Rules set by the browser for what? Anyone? To avoid sharing serious data. Okay, I'll call it critical data. Avoid sharing critical data. Anyone? If you have a microphone, you may unmute yourself and you may answer. What is same origin policy? Anyone?